Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this Sunday evening, exactly at 6 p.m. It's great to see all of you out here today with us, and to let you feel at home. We want to try our level best that you enjoy the entire session, get all your doubts cleared, have a fun time, and not just till the session, even after the session, you can connect with us, attend to different meets that we host. And before moving ahead with our speaker and the session, a brief intro about who we are. So here we are. This is GDSC ITER, and here we have an amazing session today that's turning any website that you want to into a cross-platform application. All your queries related to this topic would be resolved by our speaker for today, that's Vasant Srivastava. Vasant, without any further delay, I'd like to call you up on stage and I'd request you to have a short two-liner intro so that all the individuals get to know you. Of course, this screen out here is clearly evident that Vasant is a freelancer, a content writer, and a YouTuber. So I'll take my screen sharing down right away and allow Vasant to take over and the session to proceed. So over to you, Vasant.
So today we'll be talking about progressive web apps, or in generic terms, we'll be talking about how you can take a website and transform it into a desktop app which runs on all platforms, and a mobile app which again runs on all ecosystems. So let me just give you a few pointers. So you can watch the exact same presentation by visiting https://vas.cx/iftv. I'll repeat the link once more. https://vas, the first three letters of my name, vas.cx/iftv. You can view the same presentation in full quality there. So that's the first point. The second point is this is not an in-depth presentation. This is geared towards beginners. There is much more to building progressive web apps with the technology. And this is just the beginning of it. And all you need to know is basic HTML, CSS, and a little bit of JavaScript. Let me talk a bit about myself. I am Vasant Srivastava. I'm a computer geek. I'm a college dropout. I have been programming since 2013. I started with VB, then moved on to C#, then Python, then PHP, and finally settled on JavaScript in around 2016. So I have a YouTube channel, and this is where I make programming videos and technical tutorials. I also have Twitter, where I create extensive threads on Twitter. This one is for 10 VS Code extensions every developer should have. I make research threads like these ones. And then I also have my GitHub, where I have several projects which are free and open source. So that's a bit about myself. You can find all my social links right on the presentation. Once the session is over, I'll ask the people here to drop a link to all my socials. So what we'll be building today, right? This is a simple website that we have, which is right now. You all can visit this by going to iftv.surge.sh. That's the website which I've made as an example, and you can use this website to to practice converting normal websites into desktop apps, or you can take this as a template and then move forward with it. Let me just quickly give you a demo of what it's going to do. It's basically a very simple website where you can click a few times and you can basically press refresh, and it's going to remember how many times you clicked using local storage. We'll talk more about local storage as the presentation progresses. So you refresh, it's going to remember, and you can click on reset and it's going to reset the counter. So very simple app. Right now it's just a normal website. It's mobile friendly. You can find the code to this simple website on the GDSC ITER GitHub organization, as the name is PWA-sample. So what we'll be doing here is I'll be taking this website that you see right in the presentation and transforming it into a cross-platform desktop app which can be installed on Linux, macOS, Windows 10, and even the new Windows 11. Right? In Windows 11, you can even publish this on different stores like the Microsoft Store or the Google Play Store and all of them. Next, we are going to take the same exact website, and as you can see on the left, we have the app drawer where you can see the app icon and the way the app is going to look like. And on the right, you have a screenshot of the app running as if it's an app, but it's actually the same website, right? So that's for Android. And you can publish these on Play Store. So what are progressive web apps? They are basically enhanced web apps that aim to give an experience similar to a native app. They are applications that mimic being a native app but are not really native. There are multiple points as of why this is becoming more and more popular. The first point I'd like to take up is, so a lot of people think that native apps are moving towards becoming web apps, but it's actually the opposite. What's exactly happening in the industry is we are taking web apps and trying to make them native. So in the future, this is going to be the way to build applications, in my opinion. And this way, companies can reduce their costs. It's easy to maintain. It's only a single code base. So yes, you are going to get that luxury where you write it once and it runs everywhere. And it's easy to maintain because JavaScript developers are everywhere, and you can just build an app and publish everywhere and make it run on basically every platform by using JavaScript. We are going to use technologies like local storage. So local storage is basically, think of it like a JSON file where you can store information and retrieve information right within the browser. In modern browsers, you can store as much as 10 MB worth of data. And in legacy browsers like Internet Explorer, you can store up to 5 megabytes. And you can only store strings in local storage, right? It's kind of like a key value pair store where you give it a key and you give it a singular value and it stores and it remembers. Just a second ago, I've shown about the app, right? The sample app, which remembers how many times you have clicked. It uses the same local storage technology to store the clicked count, and it's going to retrieve it back and show it on the front end once you reload the app. That's how it remembers the count. Then you have service worker caching. Now, service worker is pretty much another JS file that's going to run in background to handle several things like push notifications, background sync, and caching. And it can even intercept your incoming requests, do a whole bunch of other things. It can get pretty complicated, but these are the basic things that it does, which is sending notifications, updating your cache in the background, syncing additional information like syncing API requests in the background, caching, and a whole bunch of other things, even on mobile devices. So let's talk about push notifications. Most modern apps on Android and iOS can send notifications or messages on your notification panel, and a very potential, it is something which has a lot of potential if websites could send push notifications as if they are a native app on these mobile platforms, right? So that's the functionality. With service workers or with progressive web apps, you can actually send notifications through your web app without having any native counterpart to it. Then we have indexed database, or indexed DB for short. It's kind of like MongoDB. It's a document-based database. There are tools to sync it with backend, and it's kind of like you store different JSON files. Think of each individual JSON file as a document. You can store multiple of them in indexed database, and it's right in your browser, right? And there are tools to take this and sync it to, let's say, a real MongoDB database which runs on a server and things like that. Then it can also do periodic background sync, which is, let's say, the best example here would be Twitter. Twitter can actually pull new tweets on their Twitter Lite app, which is actually a progressive web app. It's not really a native app. So you can take Twitter Lite as a very good example of the implementation of this technology. It can update a lot of API requests. It can do it can update the caching and things like that. That's basically periodic background sync, where you can fetch assets, send requests on behalf of the user at regular intervals using service worker, right? So these are basically extents of the service worker, and you can use many device level APIs. Like, let's say you can use the geolocation API, you can use the camera API, you can have access to the camera, which currently without progressive web apps is not really possible, right? Then you can have microphone access. You could record the audio, maybe do some processing to it, right? You could build a social media, kind of like a Clubhouse thing, or maybe even Twitter Spaces, using progressive web apps, which is not really possible using the normal web. You can have access to the gravity sensor or accelerometer. You can have access to the velocity sensor or the gyroscope sensor, whole lot of other things, right? And the overall point is basically to mimic native apps and give them the same functionality, but but still running on web technologies using a browser, which is what a lot of developers today are experienced with. So let's move on to the perks of progressive web apps. What's the benefit of using progressive web apps, right? First of all, they are cross-platform. They can run anywhere and everywhere. As long as you have a browser that supports installing a progressive web app, you can make it run. Although there are ways where you can package your progressive web app into a native app, kind of like a chocolate wrapper. You can wrap it up in a wrapper. Then it's going to be called TWAs, or trusted web intents. Once you have this, you will have like a native app that looks and feels native but is actually a PWA. Then it's installable and publishable. And what I mean by installable is it can be installed like a native app. As I've shown you in a previous screenshot, you can have this app on your app drawer along with a lot of other native apps, and you can publish it to the new Microsoft Store on Windows 11. You can publish it to the App Store. We are not entirely sure about the Apple App Store, but pretty soon that's also going to come, in my opinion. So that's the thing. And one more advantage we have with PWAs is that they are self-distributable. And what I mean by that is someone can go to your website within a browser and then click on install, and you can install it that way. So you don't have to rely on, these stores like Microsoft Store or Google Play Store. So the next functionality that you have is offline availability, where it's available offline. And because it's a website, it's not really possible with existing technology. With progressive web apps, if done correctly, you can still give them some functionality, and you can still make the app load everything and look the same even if the device is offline, because we have cached almost everything, right? So it really depends on how the architecture is implemented on the website, but you can really make it offline. Now the third benefit or the third perk that you have is it's available using search. Native apps you will see are not on the internet and hence can't be found on search engines like Google, DuckDuckGo, Brave Search, right, Quant, a whole bunch of other search engines. But if it's a PWA, all PWAs are actually normal websites under the hood. So they have backwards compatibility. They also act as a website. They can basically elevate the experience of the user by becoming a PWA, right? So they are discoverable in search, which means if you build an app in PWA, you're going to get your app can be founded not only on stores like Google Play Store or Microsoft Store, but also through your website itself, because it is going to rank on Google, right? Now the fourth perk that you have is links using URLs. Traditional desktop apps, you can't really share a particular activity, share a particular screen, share a particular thing. For example, with Twitter Lite app, which is a PWA, you can't really you can share link to a single tweet, and once the user clicks on that tweet within their Android phone, it's going to take them to the PWA instead of opening it on the website. You can't really do that without having to custom code all the logic yourself in a native app. But in a progressive web app, because it's technically a website, you have everything available readily to you. So SEO, discoverability, offline availability, installable and publishability, and at the end of the day, it's one single code base which runs on all platforms, which we as developers have been dreaming from a really long time. So before we build a progressive web app, what's the minimum requirement? What should we start with, right? First thing is it should be as fast as a rocket. And what I mean by that is you have to take care about, a lot of websites these days are getting traffic from mobile networks like 3G, 4G, and slow 3G. Yeah, so your website should be able to load at a reasonable speed on all these mobile networks, because PWA is giving first class preference to mobile apps as well. So it has to be fast as a rocket. It has to be as safe as a vault. And what I mean by that is the website that you're trying to convert into a progressive web app should be served under HTTPS. If you have an HTTP normal website, it's not really going to work. So it has to be HTTPS, right? And certain new domains like the .dev domain or the .app domain actually don't really support serving over the normal HTTP protocol. You really have to use HTTPS. Not only that, but doing frequent security audits on your website, doing bug fixes, and the most important point here is, because now it's one single code base, it's one app that you essentially have for both platforms. Any security vulnerabilities that are going to be there on the web app are now going to affect your desktop users and your mobile app users. All the vulnerabilities that usually occur in a normal web app will be appearing on these apps as well. And as fluid as water, they have to be responsive, especially they have to be mobile first responsive. That means the website should be designed for mobile first, mobile devices first, with smaller resolutions, and then can be scaled up. This is usually a design strategy that is applied when coding the website, where elements that are elements for smaller screens, the layout for smaller screens is rendered first, and then it's upscaled when it's loaded on a bigger screen, right? So that should happen so that it's fast, it's fluid, and it only includes as less code as possible for mobile devices. And one more thing that is at the end, it's not really a minimum requirement. It's something that I found myself, is your app should probably not be a sub page. So this is what I came across when developing PWAs myself, is you have vasant.com/blog. That's a sub page, and it's not really supported everywhere to have only the /blog part as a PWA and the home page as something different. So if you have, let's say, what you could do is you could actually host your blog on a separate domain like blog.vasant.com, where you can make that into a separate app and separate PWA. So it's preferably not a sub page. For now that we have gone through all of the minimum requirements, let's build it. Right, let's get to some code. Let's do it. So I am going to be coming out of my presentation. Let me close a few tabs. This is going to be quite interesting. So what I will be doing is I'll be opening my terminal. Of course, that's going to open in the wrong monitor. Just give it a second to load. All right, so we now have the terminal. What am I doing? Cool, it's zoomed in. First thing that I'm going to do is go to my downloads folder, and let me open the sample app that we have, right? So I'm going to control click that, and there it is. So I'm going to go to code, copy this basically, copy that. I do have GitHub CLI, so what I can do is basically right click, it's gh repo clone, like so, and organization /repo. Let's hit enter, let that clone itself. Cool. Now that it is cloned, let's go into PWA sample. Now that we have a sample website, let's open it in VS Code. Okay, that opened in the wrong monitor. Let me zoom in a bit. Cool. I hope all of you can see the VS Code and my sample app. Let me start it using live server so that I can show you the app in my local host, right? So this is the app running on localhost 3000, and let's close this up, or actually let's keep it up. Let's go to the commit page so that I can show you. There is only one commit right now, which is me creating the sample site. All right, so I can click a few times, I can refresh, and the clicks won't be forgot. Right, let's quickly go through what the sample app does and the source code of the sample app. Trust me, it's really simple, right? This is just bare HTML. I am going to reduce the font size a little bit so that it's legible. So these are all the elements. We have an h3, an h1, and a simple div with 2 buttons. Yeah, really 2 buttons. Cool. So let's look at the app.js. Right, essentially app.js has Tailwind here, not exactly Tailwind, it's called Twind, but it's Tailwind in the browser, right? It has my CSS framework of choice, which is Tailwind, and it basically references to all the elements that we want using JavaScript. As I said, it's going to use local storage and set the default value. Then it's going to pull that value on load. This function is basically the clicker.onClick function. Basically increments the count when you click the button, when you click the click button, which is right here, this one, and the reset.onClick function basically sets the value to 0 and renders the same thing in the UI, right? A really simple app that we have. And we also have a site icon, which we'll be using to, this is what will be shown when on the desktop when I install the app, and also on the mobile app in the app drawer once we start making the app. Cool. So let me just get started. Right. So the first thing that we have to do is create a web manifest file, and it's a JSON file. So let's make a new file. Let's click here and say web manifest dot let's call it manifest, or okay, let's call it web manifest. Actually, let's call it app.webmanifest, right? And this is just a simple JSON file that you have to do. Let's open it up. Let's say name, which is going to be our app name. I'm just going to call it PWA. Since the app is pretty generic, I'm going to say short name, which is what will be shown in the app drawer on mobile devices. Name is what will be shown on desktop devices. It can be a little bit longer. I'm also going to call it PWA. Now I'm going to say manifest version is going to be 2. Right? Then the next thing I'm going to do is grab the description, which I already have on my side. Cool. So now that we have description, let's add a start_URL. This is basically which page to load when the user clicks on our PWA. You can add additional stuff here, like let's say a query parameter that says PWA equals true, to basically figure out if the user is coming through a PWA or not. Well, that's a topic for another day. It's going to be advanced, but yeah, you can do scope. Scope is of up to how much and up to where the PWA, basically the app is there, and up to what extent it is considered as part of the app, and what else is just a normal website, right? So I'm going to put / here, which basically means everything is part of an app. And I'm going to say display standalone, and display standalone. Wait, that's not the spelling of standalone. 1 second. Cool. So display standalone is basically let me just go back to the presentation and refer to it. Is going to give you this full screen Android app look. Otherwise, you will see a few of the browser elements, right? And it's also going to be the thing that is responsible for showing like a Windows like native window borders and things like that, and basically hides the app URL and things like that, right? So let me go back to where I was in the presentation. Cool. And now that we have display standalone, I am going to say I'm going to basically drop in a background color. And yeah, cool, I'm going to drop in a background color. The next thing we'll do is specify the orientation of our app. Now this is something that is used mostly for mobile devices like phones and tablets to basically force or to basically specify in which direction, whether it be on portrait or landscape, whether it's like this, which is landscape, or whether it's like this or like this on a mobile device, right? So orientation, I am going to say portrait. You can also specify multiple of them by saying portrait first, which means it's going to load in portrait, but when the user enables auto rotate, you can really rotate the app. But if I say portrait, it's not going to auto rotate. This is, as I said, only applies to mobile devices. The next thing I'll do is copy theme color, right? This too you can customize to any values you want, right? Next, I am going to specify icons that are to be installed. So I'm going to say icons. This is going to be an array. Ideally, you should be providing multiple image sizes of icons. I already have one icon, which is reasonably big. It's not ideal, but it's 256 by 256, as you can see, 256 pixels by 256 pixels. And here I'm going to make an object. The first property here is going to be src, which is the source. I'm going to set that as /siteicon.png, which is what the image is here. The next thing I'm going to do is specify what sizes this image is, as the browser would have no way to figure it out. So this is going to be 256 by 256. And then I'm going to specify the image type, or basically the image codec, which is going to be image/png, because this is a PNG image, right? And that is pretty much it when it comes to making your manifest, right? So let's save it up. Let's go to the browser where we have our app, and I am going to do a refresh here. The way you can check if your website is compliant, if your website is installable as a PWA, is you can just right click on your Chrome browser. You can go to inspect. You will get DevTools. This is the DevTools window. You can go to the application tab. Here you will find a manifest tab. And as you can see, it says no manifest detected. So we do have a manifest file in our project directory right now, in our project folder right now, but we have to link this to our HTML. So for that, what I am going to do is I am going to go here and say link. And you can see VS Code suggests me a few types of links. I'm going to click on link:manifest. And you can see by default it says manifest JSON. I'm going to say app.webmanifest and press save. Now that happened, once we reload our website, you can see we do have an app manifest detected, and we can see that's the presentation. That's the presentation. We have everything working except cool. Now we do also have icons. This is the sample icon that I made, and cool. So we do have everything, and this is where Chrome DevTools is really helpful. You can see there is a section called installability, where it shows what issues you have to solve to fix, to basically make it a valid progressive web app, right? So now it says no matching service worker detected. And that's the next step that we will be addressing, right? So let's make a service worker right now. And to do that, I am going to go back to my code and make a teeny tiny JavaScript file. Let's call it sw.js, right? So let's make a new file, call it sw.js. And this file will be containing a pretty small snippet of JavaScript. it's going to be this one. Just give me a second. Cool. I am going to paste it and explain to you what it does so that I don't have to write it, on the spot. And this is a minimal service worker that supports offline loading functionality. So it's going to make the website work offline, right? And it loads the cache if it exists, or it's going to freshly fetch from the internet. And the way it works is it's going to hook on to the fetch event of the service worker. It has a function called event.respondWith. If the cache matches to the event request, then it's going to, either give the response or fetch it and then give the response, right? It's pretty simple. It's essentially, it boils down to, if you have a cache, respond within the cache. Otherwise, freshly fetch a new copy of the document and then serve it, right? As simple as that. So now let's save it. And just like web manifest, we do have to link it to our HTML, or in other words, we have to register our service worker. So let's go at the end of our body. Here, I'm just going to open a script tag like so. Let's make it a bit more bigger so that we can focus on this particular block. Here, I'm going to say if service worker in a string in navigator, right? I'm checking if there is compatibility with service worker so that, the website would still function normally on browsers that don't really support progressive web apps, like previous versions of Safari, Internet Explorer, and, previous versions of Microsoft Edge, right? So now here I'm going to say navigator dot register. Wait a second. Oh, navigator dot service worker dot register. This is going to be a function, and I'm going to say /sw.js because / is because it's already on the project root. So this is pretty much it, and we are actually done. Yes, this is how simple it is to convert a website into an Android app, an iOS app, a Mac app, a Linux app, and a Windows app. One code base, it all works perfectly fine, right? So let's save this. And let's reload the app once again. And as you can see, a small teeny tiny icon appeared at the top, right? Indicating that the website is now a PWA. But just to confirm, I'm going to go to inspect, go to my application tab, and here you can see that warning that basically said that basically had within the installability section is now gone, right? Now we have everything, and to check to verify that our service worker is really being registered, we can go to service worker, and you can see SWJS is now activated and is running. Cool. Now that we have service worker, you can let me just quickly show you local storage as well. This is local storage 3000. Wait a second. Okay, there are other values here. Just give me a second. Cool. So this is what we need to have. This was the clicked counter. I clicked 5 times. If I click once more and go, you can see the counter basically becomes 6. Now that our app is a progressive web app, we have essentially finished converting this app into a progressive web app, and it was as simple as that. So let's quickly review the changes that we have made, briefly, and we'll push it to the repository and we'll deploy it. And you all can try it out, test the app on your devices, right? So first thing that we did was we made a new file called app.webmanifest, and we have specified a few properties here. You can read more about web manifests on MDN and web.dev. And there are a whole lot of resources on the internet, and you can take it to any level of complexity you wish to, right? The next change that we did is we added the service worker, which is essentially a simple JavaScript file with an event listener. And you can, as I said, this is just a beginner course, so you can actually learn more about service workers by searching about service workers on internet. There are amazing videos that people have made on YouTube, going deep into service workers, what they can do, what kind of crazy performance they can give, and how they can make your website really fast and make them work offline without internet, right? So let's close this up. This was really a basic service worker. We already had the app icon to save a little bit of time. And let's move on to the final change, which was index HTML, and let's look at the changes. Cool. First thing that we added was we added a link with a rel called that points to app.webmanifest. So anyone who is requesting the website knows where our web manifest is, right? Then the second change that we did was we basically made a script block at the end of the page that checks if there is service worker support enabled and registers a service worker if it is, right? That's just a simple if statement in JavaScript. Cool. Now that we have these changes made, let's push it. And to push it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my my PowerShell. I have an alias because I do almost like 50 to 100 pushes a day to a lot of projects. So I don't want to do git add all, git commit, and git push. I have a simple alias called push push, and that's all I have to do. So let's hit enter now. And you can see my VS Code automatically opens with a custom template that lets me choose emojis and a whole bunch of other things. This is basically my own method of pushing, my own method of writing commit messages. So I can just copy this because it's a feature update. I am adding this as a feature. So I'm going to push the sparkle. I'm going to paste the sparkle emoji. Then I am going to give a pipe symbol and message in past tense, which is going to be the app is now a PWA. Let's go with that, which is simple and understandable. Let's save it and close it. As soon as I close, if I come to my terminal, you can see commit was automatically made and push has automatically been done to the repository. Now this is a bug that we have, so let's just ignore it. Let's do a clear screen, and if I go back to the repository and refresh, we have a new commit today, freshly made a minute ago, that makes the app into a progressive web app. That makes the website into a progressive web app. So now you all can go into the chat, look at the source code to basically figure out what's the entire project, and how this is basically the finished sample website, which is really small and is a progressive web app. So without further ado, let's deploy it. To deploy, I am going to use Surge. So I'm going to say surge.iftv.surge.sh, which is the domain, right? Let's run this and it should be cool. Let's give it a second, and there we go. Now we have successfully deployed the PWA, and yes, it was as simple as that. Now if I take this, if I basically close this tab and let's go back to the presentation, let's go into full screen mode, and cool. Now that we did it, let's see if it's working, right? So I want all of you to go to https://iftv.surge.sh and see if that's a PWA. If you can install it on your Chrome and on your Android. I'd encourage everyone to try it out on their devices. And let me just stop my screen share and show you my camera. So, and let's see if my if I can get the phone to focus here. Too much reflection, but I think we can go ahead with this. Cool. So now what I am going to do is open up Google Chrome, and let's open a new tab. Just give me a second. Cool. So we have an empty, come on, load up. Yeah, cool. We have an empty tab on my Google Chrome. I am going to go to the website iftv.surge.sh, once I have this, you can see this is how it looks, and you can see already Chrome is suggesting me a small banner that says add PWA to home screen. You can have custom UI, or you can use their built-in thing, but this is essentially the website. I can click a few times. Let's say click count is 5, and I can reset, or I can refresh, and you can see even if I refresh, it just blinked. I'm going to refresh again, it just blinked, and it still keeps the counter. So it's working as expected as a website, and I can finally be able to click on the reset. Cool. So the number is perfectly resetting, and all we have to do is tap on the 3 dots to open the menu here, and you should be able to see I can press install app here, and you would get a dialog which is similar to this, which basically says install app. I guess my camera doesn't want to focus now. Cool, it is focused. So you can see a similar dialog to this appears, and I can press install, and the app should be installed any moment now. Let me just look it up. Cool. So the app is installed right now, and so I am going to let this thing focus up. Open my app drawer, and we should see PWA somewhere. There we go. See? Do you see PWA on my phone? I just tap on it. You no longer have Google Chrome's URL bar and other things. You can, if I go to the recent screen, you can see that's a real app. You don't have Chrome's icon there, and you can basically publish this on Play Store as well. And yeah, it's now as if it's a native. It's not exactly a native app, it's still a web wrapper, but it behaves the same way as if it's a native app, right? So this was for Android, and let me just quickly show you once again by tapping the icon so you can see how it works. Cool. I tap the icon, it shows a splash screen, and there we have the app, right? Cool. So you all can do the same thing, and you might have noticed I did not install it from Google Play Store. I actually installed it from the website itself. You could put this on Google Play Store, but the fact is PWAs are installable everywhere, and you don't have to follow, you can install it on Linux, you can install it on a lot of other platforms as well, where stores are not really present, or basically you don't have to follow the rules of a store now to make your app installable. Cool. Let's test the app on my desktop to see how that looks on the latest version of Windows 11, the latest stable, of course. So now what I'll be doing is I'll be opening a new Chrome window. I'll see if I can do it right here. Okay, it opened on the wrong monitor. Let's put it at a respectable window size. I am going to go to iftv.surge.sh. Right? So if I open my Windows 11 start menu right now and search for IFTV, you see there are no results. I am going to search for PWA. You see there is just one folder in my documents called PWA. That's it. Right? So I am going to click on this teeny tiny desktop icon, or I can go here and say install PWA. I hope you can read the text on my screen, but yeah. So now I'm going to click on install PWA. You are going to get a prompt which is similar to this. Although, as I said, you can implement your own custom UI within the app to make the PWA install. Cool. Now that once we have it, let's click on install. And there we go. Our PWA has been installed as quickly as that. I can basically click a few times. Use Chrome's shortcuts to essentially reload. It did reload, although it didn't show up here. And you can press on reset. I'm going to click a few times. I am going to close the app. As you can see, we no longer have the URL bar or anything else that Chrome has. And you can see on my taskbar, the icon is now of the PWA instead of Google Chrome. Cool. Now that we have this, I am going to close the app. Go into my start menu, go into all apps, scroll down a little bit to where there is NMOP, and you should be able to see the app here, which for some reason does not show up here, which it did when I was testing. Okay, that's kind of wonky. Can I search for the app? So if I search for, let's say, PWA, there we go. That shows up very quickly on the start menu. I can either pin it to start or pin it to taskbar, and you can see there the app icon just popped up. I am going to go here. You can see PWA on my start. In fact, I think a few of the apps like Spotify and Twitter by default on Windows 11 are going to be PWAs. So you can see this is going to be a big deal. Cool. So now as soon as I click on PWA, the app is quick, the app is fast, and it remembered how many times I clicked. So it is working perfectly fine. All right. Now that we have a PWA, I did show you how exactly PWAs are working. I want you to tell me in the chat how many of you have tried, and for how many of you did it work out. Awesome. So we did successfully make a PWA in this session. If you have any questions, you really can ask me at this point. I will be opening Twitter on my phone. If you want the question, if the question is a bit longer, you can actually ask the same question, or you can ask the question on my Twitter. You can just tweet at me. I have Twitter open right now, so I can answer them live.
Great. I believe we do have a question out here. Right. And it says, this worked on Android, but how can it be installed on an iPhone? Would you like to take that?
Yes. You can install actually the same way as I did in Google Chrome, because Google Chrome's UI is going to be the same on Android as well as iOS. Well, unfortunately, Safari doesn't really support completely the PWAs yet. Although on iOS 15, which quite recently released, we are expecting the situation to improve. But if you have Chrome or any Chrome-based browser, you can really install it using the exact same way, where you can say install app, and it's going to appear on one of your home screens within iOS, and it's really going to look like a native iOS app.
I hope that answers the question. And then probably we have another question from Saksham. Can we add pages in the web app, or would each page require a separate PWA?
That's a nice question. Thanks, Saksham, for bringing that up. Let me just open my terminal once again, real quick. Let's zoom in a bit and go to downloads. I was calling it PWA sample. Let me open my VS Code in it. It opened. Let's close the terminal up. Cool. So here, I just wanted to point out there is this thing called scope. Start URL is where your app starts when the user clicks on the PWA icon. So if, let's say, you have multiple pages on your website, let's say it's a blog PWA, you want them, when they click on the app, you want them to show the blog page. In the start URL, you can basically say /blog. And then it would show up the blog page when the PWA is clicked, right? But let's say your app has a blog and you don't want the blog to be included within the PWA. You can actually limit the scope in such a way that it actually opens the real browser as if it's a real website, but the rest of the app will continue to perform as a PWA, right? Now, can we add pages in the web app, or should each page be a separate PWA? Each page should not be a PWA in itself. Let's say you have your home page and you have a blog. You can, if required, if you want, you can split your homepage and blog into two different PWAs, and you can add pages just normally like you do with a normal website, and they are going to work fine, as if they are a PWA. I hope that answered your question, Saksham.
This was a beginner-friendly session. So what would be your suggestions for anyone who wants to take it to an advanced level, or deep dive into PWAs even in a more better way?
The first three resources that I have are YouTube videos, because personally I prefer watching videos instead of reading documentation. Or there is this really cool YouTube channel called Fireship. He makes a really, really awesome, professionally made beautiful videos explaining tech topics, mostly developer oriented topics. And he has made a video that basically shows PWAs in 100 seconds and extends it more. He has these 3 videos. You can search them up by typing PWA Fireship, and these are the 3 videos. The first one is PWA explained within 100 seconds and a PWA app from scratch. And I actually suggest everyone to build a PWA. It's really simple. You can just build a PWA using one simple HTML file and, add the simple functionality that I've shown you today. The second one is basically about extended information about PWAs, things that PWAs can do that most people don't really know. So this is a little bit advanced. This is my recommended video to watch for after you are done with this session. So these are the 3 videos from Fireship IO, right? And the next thing that you can look up is progressive web apps from web.dev. So this is a website that's really managed by Google itself. And this is these 2 people are the people who have really worked on the technology of progressive web apps and Google Chrome in general. And there is a very well written article of what is the ideology behind PWAs, how can PWAs be a benefit, what can they do for you, and a whole bunch of other things. This is quite in-depth article, not really technical, but it talks about the theoretical parts of PWAs, why they exist, what is how is it in terms of performance and things like that. The next thing that I have is service workers, an introduction. When it comes to PWAs, service workers are the real fuel. They can completely transform how your website performs. And you can make really, really crazy performance optimizations with PWA, assuming that your website is already fast without being a service worker. You can see I have picked a few things from this exact page within our code. Like, for example, the way I check for service worker compatibility. The next link that we have is service worker API from MDN docs. This is also a really nice article. I would say read this first and then go to the developers.google.com page. That's a little bit in depth. This is not so in depth. This you can understand if you know basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So these are the resources at least I recommend. You may just with a simple Google, you may find a whole lot of them as well. So I am guessing we do have one more question from Priyanka Prasad. Is it easy or advisable for a full stack project to build with a PWA? Yes. As I said, there are several benefits to building a PWA. Usually something that comes up is, let's say you have, for example, let's talk about Discord. Discord has a native mobile app, and as a company, Discord needs to maintain basically 2 development teams, one for iOS, one for Android. Let's say as a business decision, Discord decides we are going to build a PWA, right? Then you can essentially have one team that basically manages your app for all of the platforms. So it is highly advisable, and it should be the way to build apps for the future.
Great. I believe with that we are done with the questions, and probably we could take a wrap. If there is anyone who still has queries, they could reach Vasant out. And my sincere apologies, Vasant, in the beginning I misspelled or mispronounced your surname. My sincere apologies for that. And probably if there are individuals who are curious about GDSC ITER and even want to know or interact or get to know about our future sessions with developers like Vasant, feel free to take a look at all the socials I've mentioned out here.
I'd also like to I'm sorry for interrupting you, Ankita, but I'd like to give special thanks to Ankita and Bravesh for giving me this opportunity here. It's been really wonderful showing all of you about the new technologies and progressive web apps.
Thank you so much. Any final suggestions or tips you would give all the individuals who joined us today?
It's not going to be something technical, but it's at the end of the day, I believe that playing with it, experimenting with things really teaches you a lot. So I encourage all of you here to build your own PWA. Just try it out, maybe, and yeah, it is going to give you a lot of experience and fun. It's going to be fun for sure.
Thank you so much, Vasant, for joining us today for this amazing session. It's really something new and informative that a lot of folks do not know about. And with that, I'd also like to thank all the individuals who joined us this Sunday evening. Joining us on a Sunday evening, that too from a 6 to 7 10-year time interval, is like highly appreciated. And secondly, I'd like to thank the entire team who's working at the backstage, not just in the front stage, out here showing their faces. There are a lot of folks who tried their level best to have a smooth walkthrough. And all those who had registered for the event, you'll definitely get a link via email to the YouTube recording. If not, we'd be posting it on our socials as well after probably a day or so. And then y'all can rewind and go through it all over again. If you have any queries, you have Vasant's IDs out here. You could reach him out. He'd be happy to help you. And I think that's a good note on which we could all wrap up. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And take care. Thank you, Vasant, once again.
Thank you so much.